Hello you glorious YouTubers, welcome to my channel, Tiger Rose Rides. You currently find me on my way up to, I don't know where, and the reason I don't know where, my Beeline Moto 2, on the app you can set a random round robin route for whatever distance you want, 5, 10, 15 miles, 30, whatever. And I've set in a 30-mile round trip to see where it takes me. Now, I briefly looked at the map when it came up, and it says that I'm going to Waterlooville. Warwick first, Waterlooville, Havant, and then probably back home, which is about 30-mile round trip. So it's not bad this afternoon. You can see it's pretty overcast. It was bright and sunny this morning. Really should have gone out this morning, but I was very busy. And yeah, it's not cold per se. It's a little bit of a chill to the air, but nothing serious. And it's actually quite nice out. And the reason I'm out is I did this section, and when I got it home and did the editing, I realised that I messed it up a little bit. So so I'm doing this again, this talking to you, and see where it gets me. So what have I been up to? Not a lot, to be honest with you. It's only Monday. I'm busy doing this video, editing it, because my lovely granddaughter's coming to stay with me Tuesday night, because she has her interview for university to start next year. Clever little stick. So she's going to come and stay because it's Portsmouth University, and I'm not far from the ferry to Portsmouth, so much easier for her. Especially as the interview is at 9:30 in the morning, whatever next. So that's that. So I want to get this finished before I go and pick her up on Tuesday afternoon. What else? Nothing. I've just been out for a couple of rides. We've had a couple of nice days, some horrible days as well, but we've had a couple of nice days. So I've been out whenever I can, as I do. As I said before, this riding malarkey's pretty good, and it does clear the mind. Part of the reason I'm out now, apart from having to do this section again, is because doing this video wound me up. The bike stuff, the bike history, which I'm going to be doing, it's wet. I downloaded all the photographs, I did the whole narration, the speech and everything else, and I went to look at it this morning to put it on the video, and it's gone. So not impressed. So I've got to do all that again when I get home, but I had to clear my head in the process. So that's why I'm out now. We've had some heavy rain here. It's brought all the grit and gravel into the middle of the lane. Well, I expect it was all over the lane, but the cars and lorries have seen to it that it's just in the middle now. So this week I'm going to be doing the Fortifications of Portsmouth. I am including Portsmouth in local history, because it is very local. We're all part and parcel of the same thing. Although back in the English Civil War, rumour has it that Fort Blockhouse and Gunwharf Quays, which was HMS Vernon at the time, because it was Roundheads and Royalists, they were opposing teams and were firing at each other across the water. That's what I've been told. Whether or not it's true is another matter, but we'll soon see. There's no mention of that in the history, but hey ho. Ooh. Yeah, I'm actually very impressed with these tyres. They're only the Seat tyres, and I'm sure, well, I know because I've heard them say it myself, but many other video bloggers that have commented on these tyres, the Seat ones, have all said actually they're pretty good tyres, and I completely agree with them. They're very good, very good. However, in the long run, when these need replacing, I hopefully will be replacing them with half and half. Not for any specific reason. I don't plan on doing cross country or anything else on this bike. It's not meant for that. But these roads can get very gravelly, they can get very muddy, as you've seen on previous videos of mine. So better safe than sorry. I will probably be putting maybe some trials tyres on. We'll see. That's way into the future. These should last me a good couple of thousand miles yet. So looks like this the Moto 2 is taking me a bit of a back route. I have been down here before, and it's a nice little route. Unfortunately, I've caught up with all the traffic, so I'm at their whim very much at the moment. But we'll see. It's a nice ride all the same. The motorbike history is going to be... what is it going to be? Coventry Eagles. Coventry Eagles. It's very interesting. Their bikes were very much same all the way through, but interesting all the same, and nice bike. So hopefully you'll enjoy that. What else is going on? Not a lot, to be honest. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go quiet. Yeah, right, everybody says. We're going to go quiet, enjoy the ride, enjoy the scenery, and I will start the local history very soon. Portsmouth, reputedly the most densely populated island in Europe at just 15 square miles, and with a population of 208,100 as of 2021, it is one of the most diverse cities of its size. It is estimated that around 150 languages are spoken there, and there is a building for every religion, such as a church for all branches of Christianity, mosques, synagogues, Buddhist temples, and there's probably even one for the Jedi Order. Way back in the history, it has always been a strategically valuable location and required defending, and throughout time it has grown in its complexity and size. Also, close proximity to Gosport saw fortification there as well as a backup. The first fortification in the area was Porchester Castle, which ultimately dates back to the Roman times. Its position allowed it to provide a degree of defence for the upper reaches of Portsmouth Harbour. The first recorded fortifications on Portsea Island, which is the old part of Portsmouth, appeared to have been a wall constructed in 1212 around a primitive shipyard sited just the north of what later became Camber Dock. Unfortunately, the war lasted less than 12 years. In the 14th century, Portsmouth was subject to attacks in 1338, 1369, 1377 and 1380. Some evidence suggests that simple earthworks were constructed and reconstructed around the settlement in response. The first structure built to defend Portsmouth proper was a wooden version of the round tower constructed between 1418 and 1426. 4 years later, a second wooden tower was added on the opposite side of the harbour, and during Henry VIII's rule, the round tower was rebuilt in stone and the square tower was added to the defences. To the north of the city, it is believed that a small fortification was constructed to defend the bridge across Portsmouth Creek in 1522, and the first of several defensive chains that could be raised in an attempt to block the harbour entrance were installed. By 1542, a tower was positioned on the corner where the wall extending from the saluting platform met the wall running along the southeast rampart of the town. Several other parts were added to the defences until finally the wall to the north of the town had a tower at each end, and one where it joined the northeast wall and one where it met the sea.
Gabions, or cages of rocks, were constructed along the edge of the camber dock and the palisade, and the tree trunk wall was made to separate Portsmouth Point from the town. A wooden wall was constructed between the round tower and the saluting platform around the same time. Late 1550s saw a continuation through Elizabeth I's reign, and from about 1560 the work was largely under the direction of Richard Pompinet. The ramparts were updated and the gabions, or caged rocks, along the camber and the palisade, then cut off Portsmouth Point, were replaced by a stone wall. Work continued to improve the various towers, and some of them developing into bastions, and the mounts defending the town gate was reconstructed. To this day, names such as Green's Bulwark, or Chatterton's Bulwark, the Dock Bulwark, Guy's Bulwark, and Landport Gate still exist. At the time of the Civil War, the fortifications mounted around 100 guns, and when properly manned were considered by some to be able to withstand a siege of 40,000 men. In one of the first actions of the Civil War, Parliament managed to capture the city from the Royalist forces during the siege of Portsmouth. In 1668, Portsmouth Fortifications, together with Fort Blockhouse on Gosport Point and a defensive chain across the harbour entrance, were constructed. Rumour has it that the chain still lies at the bottom of the entrance to the harbour. In 1665, Charles II ordered Bernard de Gaume to begin the reconstruction of Portsmouth Fortifications, and a process which took many years, and in 1678, Fort James was constructed on Burrow Island. Later in the 1680s, Southsea Castle was rebuilt. In the same decade, the Portsbridge Fort was also rebuilt, and in 1679, a barracks was built within the town to accommodate 2 companies of foot of roughly 120 men to man the defences. In the 18th century, Portsea started to grow up around the dockyard, and in the 1770s, a series of ramparts and moats were constructed to protect this new settlement. At the same time, the defences started to focus on protecting the whole of Portsea Island. The Portsbridge Fort was again rebuilt in 1746. During 1756 and 1757, the first Hillsea lines were constructed in order to protect the north of Portsea Island. The first Fort Cumberland was constructed to prevent hostile forces from sailing to Lanston Harbour, and the first Lumps Fort and Eastney Battery were built to protect the Eastney Beach. The 19th century saw a massive rebuild of the defences and Cumberland forts that had a significant rebuild works. During the 20th century, improvements in artillery technology had rendered the various landward-facing fortifications obsolete, and over the turn of the century, and by the end of the first decade, they largely were disarmed. After World War I, the city councils started to buy various defences as they were released by the military. The 1920s and 30s saw the purchase of much of the Hillsea lines and Lumps Fort by the city. During World War II, anti-tank defence blocks were constructed on Fraser Beach. Pillboxes were constructed to defend Portsmouth Airport in the form of Pickett Hamilton forts, and the sea forts were re-equipped with AA guns. A new concrete gun emplacement which contained a single 75mm gun was constructed on the eastern part of the Hillsea lines, and the remaining defences were deactivated when the UK abandoned coastal artillery in 1956. Of the defences constructed, Portsea Island, Southsea Castle, Fort Cumberland, the Round Tower, the Square Tower, Lumps Fort, parts of the Hillsea lines, the Spur Redoubt, and parts of the walls of Old Portsmouth along the seafront all survive to this day. Various fortifications within the naval dockyard also exist. Beyond Portsea, the majority of the Portsdown forts remain, although Fort Wallington has been largely demolished. Of the 4 gates in the walls, Old Portsmouth, only Landport Gate survives in its original position. King James's Gate, Lion Gate and Unicorn Gate have all been re-erected slightly further away. Anti-tank defence blocks on Fraser Beach are now a Grade 2 listed structure, and one of the Pickett Hamilton forts constructed to protect the airport was on display outside the D-Day story in Southsea. This was removed in 2017 when the museum was refurbished. That's it for local history this week. I hope you either learnt something or confirmed something you thought you already knew. Now we're going to go into the bike history. This week's bike history is the Coventry Eagle Cycle and Motor Company. The company, which was based in Falls Hill Road, Coventry, produced motorcycles between 1899 and 1940. In 1897, the company was formerly known as Hotchkiss, Mayo and Meek at Hill Cross Works, Coventry. When Hotchkiss died and John Meek left the company, it came under the control of Edmund Mayo and Bernard Rotherham, and moved to Lankin Street and renamed the company as the Coventry Eagle Cycle Company. Production began with the building of bicycles and then tricycles assembled from bought-in parts. These cycles were well built and popular, which accounted for the continued success of the firm. Then in 1898, the earliest motorcycles range emerged, which included a model with the MMC, or Motor Manufacturing Company, engine hung from the down tube, and by this time it had increased to a range of singles in loop frames with sprung forks and belt final drive. In an attempt to add passengers, the Solo could tow a trailer. There was also a four-car and later a sidecar version as well. During this period, they also produced machines under the Royal Eagle name, and this time also saw Edmund Mayo's son Percy Mayo join the business. Between 1913 and 1917, production of motorbikes proceeded in earnest, and by 1914 the range now included 3 models. The smallest was lightweight and powered by a 269cc Villiers engine, driven by a 2-speed gearbox by chain and a belt final drive, and with Druid forks. It was also available as a single-speed machine. The other 2 models used Abingdon engines as a 3.5 horsepower single and a 5 horsepower to 6 horsepower V-twin, with 3 speeds and a belt final drive. Moving forward to 1916, there was also a model with a 2.5 horsepower Jap engine. The Great War slowed down production of new models, and until post-World War I, only singles were produced. At this point, they also moved to 201 Falls Hill Road alongside Coventry even, Ensign Cycle and Motor Company, which was also at this address. In 1921, the company returned to V-twins for just that year. They also introduced 2 sidecar models that had either 500cc single or a 680cc V-twin Jap engine. And as we moved to 1922, the company produced only singles once again, using engines from Villiers, Jap and Abingdon's King Dick engine. 1923 saw the return of the Jap V-twin, together with the appearance of the famous sporting twin Flying 8 in various forms. This sporting twin would become one of the best remembered motorcycles. There was also a 147cc 2-stroke of their own design. In 1924, the 2-stroke engine was enlarged to 170cc, and the Flying 8 was available with single valve or overhead valve Jap engines, with the latter and the Jardine gearbox. It became the second most expensive machine on the market. In 1928, the policy of 4-stroke only came to an end with the arrival of twin-port Supersport Villiers engines in 147cc, 172cc and 172cc twin-port. Supersport's forms appeared on a set of pressed steel cycle parts. The company also began to use forks from pressed sheet steel. Although this was common in Europe, Coventry Eagle were the first major British company to use this method, a move that proved to be very successful for the following decade. In 1929, there were minor frame changes, and the arrival of 196cc Villiers and 197cc Jap engines brought the range to 5 models. The Flying 8s continued to progress, and a similar name style was used on models with 344cc and 490cc two-port overhead Jap engines known as the Flying 350 and the Flying 500. Both had a new cradle, frame and tubular web girder forks. In 1930, most of the range continued, and new models were added using dry sump Sturmey Archer inclined engines of 348cc and 495cc in conventional tubular frames. Also in this year, they announced the Flying 8 machine. In 1931, twins were dropped, and only the production of two-strokes continued for some years. Many of the models were stylish and distinctive with large exhaust systems, as on the Silent Superb. The most basic was the 98cc Marvel, and other model names were Wonder and Eclipse in a pressed steel frame. That brings us up to 1935, when the next sensation was the Pullman, with a new type of pressed steel frame with enclosures of the mechanics and rear wheel. The rear suspension was controlled by leaf springs running along the frame sides. In 1937, the 4-stroke single returned, using matchless engines in 3 sizes. These, plus a variety of 2-strokes from an auto cycle to the Pullman, ran on the road for a decade. At which point in 1940, production of motorcycles was drastically cut because of the war, which soon ceased and never returned. During World War II, the factory was used for manufacturing machine guns, partly due to the fact that one of the Hotchkiss family was co-founder of the company known as Hotchkiss, Mayo and Meek. In 1959, they moved from Coventry to the Grove Lane Works in Will Street, Birmingham, and remained in business in the town until 1968. They acquired Falcon Lightweight and continued to sell cycles until 1968. That's it for the motorcycle history. I hope you enjoyed it and found something interesting in it. That's all for this week. And so until next week, be safe, ride safe, and take great care.